Yo!
What up, though?
I got to talk. I gotta tell what I feel. I gotta talk about my life as I see it.
Alright then. It's time for you to bring it to the table.
Turn up your radio wherever you at. We about to bring it.
StreetBeat.
Yeah.
With Tony B.
For the next hour, Tony B will give you a chance to tackle local, national, and international issues that affect your community.
StreetBeat. StreetBeat. Tony.
Okay, Daniel, I don't know if you can hear me, but I do not have headphones. Let's see.
On there.
Okay. I can't hear in the headphones, and it's not on. So you might have to check that. There we go. All right. Can we do this with the intro?
Already did.
Oh, okay. Well, then here we are. Thank everyone for tuning in. It's me, your host, Tony B. You're listening to StreetBeat. And we have a very special show for you today. I'm going to be talking with the Executive Director of Alliance for Education and also the Executive Director for the Department of African American Male Achievement. We are going to be talking about a grant through a partnership that these two organizations came together to make happen. We'll find out exactly what the deal is on that. I will start by introducing our guests. And I believe I have Lisa Chick on the line with me. Lisa, are you with me?
I am. Here I am.
Lisa joined the Alliance for Education as president and CEO in October 2016. Prior to joining the Alliance team, she had a long career at the national education nonprofit City Year, serving in multiple roles, including executive director of the City Year Seattle program. Thank you for joining us, Lisa. And is Mia here?
I think Mia's working on joining right now. I don't think she's on quite yet.
Okay. Mia Williams will also be joining us on the program again. She was appointed as Executive Director of the Department of African American Male Achievement. Well, why don't we start, Lisa, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be on.
And let's start with an explanation, if you will, of the Alliance for Education and the role that you play in the Seattle public school system.
Absolutely. The Alliance has been around for about 25 years, and our role with the Seattle public school system is to bring resources into the system to help solve the challenges that the district is faced with. So for the last 25 years, we've done things like raise money and develop programs that are going to support the students of Seattle public schools.
And regarding the African American Male Achievement Program, how did this partnership come about? How was Alliance for Education involved in the granting process? Give us more information on that.
Sure. We work in really close partnership with Seattle Public Schools and try and stay in touch with the strategies and priorities of the district. Of late, the district created a new strategic plan, Seattle Excellence, that's focused on racial equity and how to support students furthest from educational justice. When we learned about that, we wanted to know about strategies that were going to be employed to that end, to meet the demands of that new strategic plan. And the Department of African American Male Achievement was one of those strategies. And we were delighted to hear about this innovation. We know it came from a similar program, was inspired in part by a similar program in Oakland, which I had the opportunity to visit back in October of 2016. And we felt like it was a really excellent opportunity to think about how could the broader community support something new and different to get at really engaging and investing with our African American male students. So that's sort of how it all came about. The district told us about the strategy, and then we jumped in to say, let's see what we can do to support it.
And from the Alliance for Education standpoint, what do you see happening with this grant? What will make this grant, in the eyes of Alliance for Education, successful? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? And even if it's not outcomes, what is the goal with the partnership and the money that's going to be coming? $1.86 million that was raised, right?
That's right. So far, we're still working on it, Tony. Still hoping to generate some more. But I will say that we are delighted to see this focus of the district on racial equity. We know that districts across the country and here in Seattle have wrestled with this challenge of making education truly equitable for all of our students, and really have seen how our system has left behind many of our students, especially our students of color, especially our African American students. And so our hope with the focus of this department is that we really start to think differently about how we can create a system that supports all students and particularly understands and supports the excellence of our African American male students. So it's really about thinking differently about education. It's about really listening carefully to our students and our families, and creating an educational system that is in support of their success. So our hope is to really follow and invest in the leadership of Dr. Williams and the department and support their strategies. They have some great ideas.
You're listening again to Street Beat, and Daniel, you'll let me know when Dr. Williams gets on, right?
I'm on.
Oh, okay. Also joining us is Mia Williams, Dr. Mia Williams. Again, as I mentioned before, appointed Executive Director of the Department of African American Male Achievement. Began this new role and reports directly to the Superintendent, Denise Juneau. If this name sounds familiar, and a lot of you remember, of course, we have South Seattle Pride here. That's one reason why we're Rainier Avenue Radio, and Dr. Williams, everything. Thank you for everything that you did at Aki Kurosi.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So, and your new role here at the Department of African American Male Achievement. Tell us a little bit about this. Is this new department? Is it an entire new department in the Seattle public school system? Why it was created, and when all this came to be, and when did you find out about it?
I know that Lisa Chick just spoke about our partners in Oakland, who were the founders. Now 11 years ago, Chris Chapman was the founder of the Office of African American Male Achievement in Oakland. And since then, across the nation, there's been some other offices that have opened, and we had been partnering with them for probably the last 4 or 5 years, as we now have 4 schools that have a signature program called, that's a manhood development program that is Kingmakers of Seattle, which is at Mercer, Denny, Aki, and Interagency currently, and we're hoping to expand. So we've been working with them, but what we also know about is other districts that have standalone offices. Students have, the Black males have been more successful. And even with the Stanford article that came out about the research of the program in Oakland, it also, they noticed, and even in schools, that we had programs that African American girls outcomes actually advanced as well when the programs were there in their space. So we kind of knew about it, but I would say the African American Male Task Force, the advisory that's been meeting for years, talked about in 2017, gave Dr. Nyland recommendations from there, and just really wanting to center African American males based off of multiple different data points that our system has not been doing right by our African American males, and also females and Indigenous and Latinx, all the students that have been in the furthest way of educational justice. But one of the things that we know that has been successful is centering. So we heard about this, and then this is one of the things that happened. So the office, it was really important that the Alliance partnered with us. As the office, my position was paid for out of this new office. So a lot of the dollars are really helping us get to this foundational work. So I was fortunate to be able to hire 2 managers based off of some of these dollars in the office. So I have Kevin Loyal and Adam Hazlick, who's joined the team. And what also the dollars has done is that within our new strategic plan has allocated other dollars between our strategic plan dollars. So we will be hiring some 3 African American male program coordinators and to support 9th grade 6+ credits in college and career going work, and then also 2 family support specialists out of the Office of African American Male Achievement. So when we've solidified some other dollars, it's actually opened up some doors to solidify other dollars to make the department better. And if I can just go to your question that you kind of mentioned to Lisa of what the outcomes are, we really stand by the pledge of nothing for us without us. And we really want to, what I was most proud about meeting with the philanthropic community was that they were open to, I can't just bring Mia Williams' experience at Aki and what worked well for my African American males there to say that's just going to work for all of the Black males in Seattle Public Schools. So what we're really doing in our phase 1 is how do we really understand the experiences of African American males throughout all of Seattle, hear their experiences, and also from our elders. We have many Black-led community partners, the families, really about what they feel that they need when they've thrived. And we just really need to look at the asset that we already have, the Black excellence that's happening. So we're going to build a multi-year plan after we're done with our listening and learning campaign, in ways that we're doing surveys, interviews, just any space that we can so that we build intentional strategies. And these dollars will help us with that, whether we're partnering with our Black-led community organizations, what other things that we need to build out. And so we just want to be really intentional so that it's not about what Mia believes is best, but we're really going to hear it from the students that are experiencing it every day. So I'm so excited that the philanthropic community was willing to listen to that and put that as a top priority. The dollars.
All right. So again, you're listening to Street Beat. It's me, your host Tony B. My guests joining me are Lisa Chick, the CEO, Executive Director of Alliance for Education. I wanted to make sure you got some information on them. And also joining me is Dr. Mia Williams, the newly appointed Executive Director of the Department of African American Male Achievement. This is this is a Seattle Public School position, Dr. Williams.
Yes.
But it's funded by a grant from the Alliance for Education.
Well, my position is funded from Seattle Public Schools, and my 2 managers are funded out of these dollars, yes.
Okay, and then the new hires will also be funded out of these dollars, is that correct?
I think some additional staffing probably will happen with that, but currently the new positions that I was discussing is actually going to come from Seattle Public Schools as well.
Those will come from Seattle Public Schools as well?
Yes, and so we're super excited. So the family support specialists were bargained in the teaching bargaining agreement last year. And also, with the strategic plan, there's different goals, and the goals are about 9th grade, 6+ credit in college and career going is one of the priorities for the strategic plan. So within that, there's a work group that has like outside community partners and central office leaders. They actually went out and talked to a few of our Black males in high school. And one of the things that they stated was that having mentors that look like them in schools to help them navigate the system was going to help. So that is where we received the dollars to have program coordinators to help set up mentoring for all 9th grader Black males and within the system, and partnering with other parts around case management to really help them be successful.
All right. And so, Mia, I'm sure you know, and Lisa, if you don't know, on Street Beat, we have open, honest, frank conversation. And so I'm going to be asking you some questions, and they're not meant to make you comfortable or uncomfortable. They're just questions. I'm just looking for answers. As you know, recently, the awareness that has been created about the systemic oppression and disparities that are in place that have been working against African Americans for over 400 years are still there. We know that the coronavirus and the recent protests for George Floyd's murder have made those things more prominent to more people, but they continue to happen. As a matter of fact, in Seattle recently, we've had shootings. And so while we focus on police brutality, there are still crises taking place in the black community, and in particular with black males. So from both of you, well, let's start with this. Do we know how many black males, African American males, are in the Seattle public school system?
Yes, there's approximately, based off of the seniors that just graduated, there's approximately almost 5,000 black males across from pre-K through 12th grade.
And that's out of a total population of?
Close to 54,000.
Okay, about 54,000 students, scholars, attend Seattle Public Schools. About 5,000 are African American males. And so from both of you, from the position of the Alliance for Education and from the Department of African American Male Achievement, what do you call an African American male? How do you determine that?
And some of that, I would say that everybody's like, oh, if they are East African, we're looking at black males. And so that is our definition of that. So if you are a black male, that's how we identify that.
So do they have to identify themselves as black males if they are mixed race? If they're, how do we? Is that something that you do when you're sitting in your office and you're saying, okay, this person has identified as black male? Do the students do you just see them as, okay, you look black? I mean, is it some sort of?
So I would say that this has been something interesting. So, that when families sign up, they usually identify whatever they believe their race is at the time. And so what we've had an issue with is that there are multiracial students, and being able to make sure that we are finding that information out. I know that when I was a principal at Aki, because I knew my students, right? So I knew students, but sometimes families might have put down their student that was mixed race with white and black, may have put down that student as white, and that student would have missed out on opportunities that we had for them. But because I knew my students, so now most families, when they sign off on those Fed 7s, it will say, so any student that identifies black on, if they're mixed race, we are also supporting them based off of that information. And then also that if somebody was missed based off of that way, we would also be conferring with the school leaders and families to let us know that. But our goal is to try to make sure that we are representing and supporting all black males.
Okay, I'm going to have another question on that. But Lisa, I want to get the answer from you from the position of the Alliance for Education. When you say that you're supporting African American male achievement, what does that mean? Who are African American males from the standpoint of the Alliance for Education? Or do you just rely on Seattle Public Schools Department of African Male Achievement to tell you who are African American males are, or do you who does the Alliance for Education identify as African American males, and how do you do that?
Well, I think first and foremost, I would look to students to self-identify in the way that they believe themselves to be. So I would trust our students to say who and what they are. And then I'd follow the lead of Dr. Williams in the department to look at who they are identifying as African American males within the system. But we really, this fund is designed to support the strategy of the district and support Dr. Williams' strategy at this department. And so we would really look to them to be identifying which students would be recipients of support through the.
Okay, but for the Alliance for Education, when you're saying African American male, as the Alliance of Education, because this is so important, you don't have a definition of what of who you're supporting with this money, or do you have a definition, or is it so vague that you can't actually say this is who we believe to be African American males are, or is it African immigrants, is it mixed race people, or is it just right now kind of vague and you're relying on the Department of African Male Achievement to define that for you? Because that's a big question.
It is a big question. I would say black males, like Dr. Williams said, and I again would say I would look to the students because race is a complicated construct, and I would look to the students to self-identify.
Okay, so if there are students who have not filled out the paperwork that identify themselves as African American right now, they're not being identified as African American. That's something that people need to be made aware of to be part of this, or you just roll with what you got. And again, I got more questions, but I just kind of want to define who we're working with here. And as we talk about $1.86 million, which on the one hand sounds like a lot of money, but on the other hand, it's not a lot of money.
That's right. That's right. You're absolutely right about that. I think, one of the things that is important to us about this department strategy is that it really is grounded in community engagement and speaking to students and families and connection. And I think one of the things Dr. Williams just spoke to was, as a principal at Aki, she really spent time getting to know her students and her families and what kinds of supports that they need. And that's what we're hoping to really cultivate through investing in this department, is better understanding from the district about what our students and families need, what our African American students and families need, and really building connection. So that will be a piece of how that identification takes place, is by that community engagement and community connection.
Okay, and I'm going to ask both of you this question. Why was there a need, and you get to answer it however you want to, why was there a need from the Alliance for Education and Mia, from you as the executive director of the Department of African American Male Achievement, why has there been a need identified to specifically create a revenue source as part of the supplementing the education process for African American males? Now, we know about the opportunity gap, so I'm not really looking for a bunch of $10 words here. I'm looking for you to speak to the people, who are hearing this information right now, and explain from your perspectives why specifically there is a need, and that this is going to be devoted to. And if I'm wrong, if it's going to impact other ethnicities, let me know that too, but specifically for African American male achievement.
You want me to go first, Lisa? Or
Go right ahead.
Well, we know that the school system schools were made to do what they're doing right now. They were designed to do that. And they have not been serving our Black male students or any of the other students for educational justice. So it is going to take a lot to rebuild, reimagine, and reinvent a school system that centers and loves our Black males, loves our Black boys, and anti-Blackness and anti-racist practices that we need to dismantle the dishumanization of our Black boys in our system. And how are we going to do that?
And that's happening. Those are things that you're saying are happening in the school system now.
We are working on it. It didn't happen overnight. It's not.
I mean, the dehumanization, the things that you're talking about dismantling, those are things that you're saying are taking place now in our school system.
100%. Yes. And I think that that's why I believe that it's going to take each and every one of us to play a role for this, to really build a system, like, as I said, who love our Black boys and teens and want to support the advancement of their outcomes. We know that the system is the issue. We don't need to fix our Black boys. We need to fix the systems that have created the missed opportunities, as you already talked about, a lot of things that perpetuate in multiple ways for them not to be advanced. And it's a whole self. And that is what our job is to do. And to, like I said, to work side by side with the families, with our African American boys and teens, to hear what they need, and partner with the elders from our community. There's a lot of things happening in our community, and if we are aligned and we're coherent, and there's a lot of things happening in Seattle Public Schools.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but we're just almost out of time here. I went really fast, and I want to make sure we get to a lot of questions. And Lisa, can you answer that question for me as well? Why specifically African American males?
If you look at the history of public education across the country and here in Seattle, you can see that the system has failed our African American male community and other students as well, other students of color. And I think that we know that that's not about the children, that we know that's about the system. And we know we have to think differently in new and innovative ways about how we transform that system to better support our students who have not been supported by the system. So that's why, and the other piece I would just focus on is that education is a foundational part of every child's experience, every human's experience. And if the education system fails you, you're set up for failure for the long term. So when you look at investing in African American males, if we can transform the educational system to be more supportive of their success, that can change lives for the long term, and that's critical work.
You're listening to Street Beat. It's me, your host, Tony B. We're talking about the Department of African American Male Achievement. $1.86 million has been raised in partnership with the Alliance for Education. This money going to African American Male Achievement. We're trying to figure out what that looks like, what that means. My guests joining me are Lisa Chick, the CEO and Executive Director of Alliance for Education, and Dr. Mia Williams, the newly appointed Executive Director at the Department of African American Male Achievement. I know that you said you've got some talking to do and some listening to do, but there have to be some things in place that you've identified. Can you tell us specifically from each of you what you see right now, specifically where the greatest needs are for African American males in the education system? If you had to say, these are the top three that need to be addressed. And maybe when you talk to people, you'll find something else. But in order to get the money, in order to get this thing in place, in order to form a strategic plan, something, was there from each of you. Like, what do y'all identify as, if you had to take the top three needs for African American males that can start to do whatever it is that this department is trying to do? Lisa, I'll start with you.
Well, in terms of the way this fund was created, our focus and our goals for the fund was that
the top three needs for African American males in the school system right now. What would you say those are?
I would actually defer to Dr. Williams because that is her expertise in her work. But in terms of, from my perspective, I would say ensuring that students have the supports that they need to be academically successful, that they have the mentorship and guidance to be socially and emotionally successful, and that they are teed up to go on to college and career beyond the K-12 system. That's what I would really look at.
Thank you. I'm trying to, because this time went by so fast. Dr. Williams, same question.
We'll come back. So we have 4 things, and I'm just going to name them. These are our foundational strategies around the culture. How do our Black males feel like they belong, they're firm, their cultural identity, and they're valued? So we need to build a system that is going to do those things so they can thrive. Mm-hmm. The conditions, what are the policies that are creating barriers for them being successful? So we need to look at the policies that are creating that. The third C is about competency of the adults. What are the culturally responsive practices that they're doing? And also the culturally responsive workforce, getting more Black male educators in front of them and supporting them. And the 4th C is our community connections. How do we maximize and utilize our community partners, Black-led community partners, to help assist us along this work to provide for all of our Black males across our whole system?
Are there identifiers that you have at this point where you can say, if we're at the same place next year in time, this is what we would have liked to have. This is how we would have wanted to move the dial. This is why we've got $1.86 million, so that folks who are listening right now are going, hey, we need this. What's supposed to happen? At this time next year, what would be the thing that you would have liked to see accomplished? And again, speaking directly to the people who this is impacting and affecting, where you can say, next year we at least want to be here with this.
I would say that our hope is that the department has had a chance to have comprehensive engagement with the African American community, and that includes students, families, and other community members, to really understand what needs are, and that there's a very clear plan for the next couple of years in terms of how the department will engage. We actually are starting there without additional expectations of the department, to really say that the grounding of this work has got to be in talking to children, talking to students, talking to families, talking to community members, to really understand what the right strategies are. So from our perspective as donors, that's where we start. But I defer to Dr. Williams for her goals.
So for the Alliance for Education, next year at this point in time, the thing that you're saying, we will feel, okay, this is a marker for us. And is that a difficult question to ask, or a year from now, this is what we would like to see from this point, would be a better relationship in the African American community? Or better connections?
Comprehensive engagement, and so that the work has been done to really sit down with students, families, and community members to understand what folks believe is necessary and required to transform the system, as well as a clear and structured plan for what implementation of next steps of the work will be. That's really what we're looking for in the first year of the department.
And Dr. Williams, same question.
First thing is that I would identify that we have a centralized common belief about the experiences of African American males in the system, that where they're not only at the table to hear their voices, but they are part of decision making on building the intentional strategies that happen. So I would have them look, the Alliance look for that. How could I show that? How do we see that in action? And the more intentional strategies built to support from the findings that we found out, and how that there will be more program offerings as like Kingmakers that offers a cultural identity and other things that we could utilize. And that they will feel, that they will see that there is more trust with the African American community, and that there's the centering of love of our Black students. And I believe that those are ways that you're going to see, because we have anti-Blackness is real, and we need to make sure that we are fixing that. So next year at this time, we should be able to do that.
All right, and thank you both for joining me. Like, we ran out of time, and there was just so much to talk about.
We can come back. We can come back.
I think we need to. I don't think a half an hour was enough time, especially with everything that's going on in our communities and our society today, to really have the thorough type of conversation that we need to have about this and give people a real understanding about why this department exists. I do want to give both of you the opportunity for final words here before we go. So again, Lisa, I will start with you.
I just appreciate Dr. Williams' leadership, appreciate the district focusing on racial equity as a priority in their strategy. And I would also just say, if folks are interested in engaging around this work, there are more opportunities to contribute and lots of ways to get involved. So they should reach out to me or Dr. Williams if they're interested. And
Dr. Williams.
Same thing. I just wanted to make sure that we all are accountable to this. Our Kings deserve what the best educational experience. And I love that we're utilizing the Kings voices. So as I was just coming to this call, I was just off a call where we have 4 Kings talking to other educators about what they need to see in fall. So starting our Student Leadership Council, but other ways that we can elevate the student voices, and they're sitting at the table being decision makers, and families and elders and the Black community being in those roles. So please make sure you get involved. We will be time for you to come together, and we will be sending out information of ways that you can get involved.
Well, again, thank both of you. Let's do this again so we can get deeper into this. I think, as you both know, what happens in society and the education of African males are intrinsically intermingled and exacerbated by the things that are taking place now by coronavirus. So it's hard just to have a conversation about one and not have the conversation about the other, because they're kind of drivers of each other. Thank you both for joining me on Street Beat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
You've been listening to Street Beat with me, your host, Tony B. We will do this again, and we'll try and get it set up so that we don't take too long to come back. And the other thing is, I know I said I was going to take phone calls. Thank you for calling. We just ran out of time, so the next time that we'll have do this, we'll make sure that we leave enough time to have your questions answered as well. That's a big part of this, is your questions, and it seems that that's what both entities want to hear from as well. That's it. That's all the time that I have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B., your host of Street Beat, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.
Thank you.
Thanks.